Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, I thought that I would comment on this fight. There was one person that told me about this fight being signed up for. At least I believe it is. I think that this might even possibly be. Is it a mandatory for Ryan? I know he doesn't have one of the belts in that division, but for some reason, I thought I heard that this fight might have been ordered. I can't remember. But when it comes down to it, so Ryan Garcia, who's really been on the rise in terms of popularity lately, young kid, decently talented, once again up on the rise in popularity lately. His next fight apparently is going to be against Dominican fighter Javier Fortuna. And I remember Javier Fortuna, even when he was an undefeated fighter. Excuse me. I remember him when he was even an undefeated fighter, and I can't ever say that I was overtly impressed with him. But looking at his record lately, with him knocking out Jesus Cuellar, who's a decent fighter, not an A class fighter, but a decent fighter, with him in that one fight against Adrian Granados, with him, it looked like, in all honesty, from what I remember, that he was going to actually stop Adrian Granados. Had that not been a no contest, but unfortunately for Javier Fortuna, something happened. I believe it was a headbutt or something like that. Or no, actually, you know what? I don't know if it was. I think someone fell out of the ring. Maybe it was Javier Fortuna. I can't remember. Something happened there where it was a no contest. So one of you guys can let me know. But when it comes down to it, either way, Javier Fortuna actually has looked more impressive to me lately. He's got decent power in his hands. He's not the worst boxer in the world. Do I believe that he's necessarily an A class fighter? I don't think he's necessarily an A class fighter, but when it comes down to it, I do think he is a decent fighter, and I don't think that this is the worst fight in the world for Ryan Garcia to take next. Is it as big as a Devin Haney fight would be? No, and of course you're going to have a lot of the LDBC and new media channels allege that Devin Haney is being avoided, but it is what it is. Do I believe that Devin Haney is being avoided? I think it's possible, but when I look at Devin Haney, I've just never been overtly impressed with his skill set. I don't think he has an A-grade skill set. That's not to say that he's not talented, but when I take a look at him, he's got decent power, decent speed. He can adjust a little bit, but at the same time, I see him a little bit too hittable. But that being said, Ryan Garcia sometimes has those problems as well. Ryan Garcia versus what's his name, Devin Haney. I think that would be a fantastic fight. But before we get that fight, possibly we'll have to get this fight. And the perfect fight, I think, actually for Devin Haney next would have been a Vasyl Lomachenko. But I'm not too sure if Vasyl Lomachenko wants to face a Devin Haney. So the LDBC and new media, even though I don't usually agree with their opinions, they may be correct on that one. But when it comes down to it overall, what I'm going to say is this. The Javier Fortuna versus Ryan Garcia fight, I don't think is the worst fight in the world. Do I believe that Ryan Garcia most likely is going to win this fight, probably even by knockout? I believe most likely he will. But we'll have to see what happens. You never know. It always could be an interesting fight. Javier Fortuna, if Ryan Garcia does underestimate him, it could end up being an interesting fight because you don't want to underestimate this guy. He's got decent power in his punches. He's not the worst boxer in the world. And not too long ago, he ended up having a split decision over Robert Easter. Now, in my opinion, Robert Easter isn't necessarily an A-class fighter. But Robert Easter is at least somewhat of a decent boxer to where if you have a split decision over him, you're at least going to be, very high class B range when it comes down to it. So that's the main thing there. But when it comes down to it, man, I believe Ryan Garcia most likely is going to beat Javier Fortuna. I believe he is going to knock him out. But if he is going to knock him out, that does put him in good company because Robert Easter was not able to do that. Adrian Granados, of course, that fight ended up being a no contest, but he was not able to do that. I'm trying to think of another fighter that he's fought recently that was not able to do that. Jesus Cuellar was not able to do that. So it is what it is. And we already seen him knock out Luke Campbell in his last fight, where I'm not going to give him an A grade. I don't think he looked overtly impressive. He obviously got knocked down in the fight and had some rounds lost. But, Ryan Garcia came back pretty well in the fight, and he ended up knocking out Luke Campbell, something that no one has ever done in their career or when facing Luke Campbell. And he's faced some pretty decent fighters. He faced Vasyl Lomachenko. He faced Jorge Linares when he was at his best. So, Luke Campbell, I'm not going to place him as an A-class fighter, but when it comes down to it, maybe you could say a solid B, and Ryan Garcia was able to knock him out. So when it comes down to it, Ryan Garcia does deserve a certain amount of credit, because to be honest with you, I thought Ryan Garcia was going to lose that fight. I predicted Luke Campbell to actually win that fight because when I had seen it from Ryan Garcia before, I thought he was going to end up as a complete hype job, to be honest with you. And, you know, had this overall, that same Ryan Garcia had not faced Luke Campbell yet, and if he was just going straight into the Javier Fortuna fight, I might even be saying that this is a 50-50 fight. But Ryan Garcia obviously has a decent amount of talent, and he at least has somewhat in terms of skills to where he can carry his own. So I believe Ryan Garcia will win this fight. I believe he's going to be able to outbox him, and I'm going to say that Ryan Garcia most likely KOs Javier Fortuna within probably the first 6 rounds. We'll see what happens. Ryan Garcia is in a very interesting position, you know, because he probably is the most popular fighter, debatably, at the 135-pound division. Maybe it could be either Vasily Lomachenko or Teofimo Lopez. Gervonta Tank Davis, I believe, is up there now as well. So, you know, one of those fighters. But Ryan Garcia, in terms of a following, might be the most popular fighter there. But I've guessed time and time again that he actually might be the least elite fighter there in terms of the elite fighters. I always put him in last place. But after that position, or excuse me, that fight against Luke Campbell, he clearly is a little bit better than I thought he was. And when it comes down to it, I would love to see him in fights against Devin Haney, especially. I would love to see him in fights even against the Lomachenko or Gervonta Tank Davis or Teofimo Lopez. Now, in my opinion, I think he loses a lot of those fights. But when it comes down to it, you never know. Ryan Garcia, one thing I am going to say is this. His power really surprised me in that last Luke Campbell fight. And that's why I believe he's most likely going to knock Javier Fortuna out. Javier Fortuna, even though I believe his boxing ability actually has gotten better over time, he does overextend a certain amount of his punches, and sometimes he does leave himself open to get hit. So I believe Ryan Garcia most likely is going to knock Javier Fortuna out. We'll have to see what happens. I'm going to predict that it's within the first 6 rounds. Once again, I don't think that this is the worst fight in the world. Is it necessarily the fight that we all probably wanted to see? Probably not, but you know, it is what it is. It's not the worst fight in the world. You know, Ryan Garcia deserves a lot of credit for that last one he had over Luke Campbell. And if he's able to look pretty damn impressive against Javier Fortuna, that's something that Robert Easter or a couple of other fighters were not able to do. And at one point in time, I thought Ryan Garcia was not even a Robert Easter. So, you know, Ryan Garcia, in my opinion, has gone up a long way, especially with that win over Luke Campbell. But it is what it is. Anyway, I guess that's really about it for this video. We'll have to see what Ryan Garcia really does in his next fight against Javier Fortuna. I'm decently excited for this fight. Once again, I don't think it's an A-grade fight. I think that Ryan Garcia most likely is going to be the clear favorite here, and this isn't necessarily a 50-50 fight. But when it comes down to it, this will judge even a little bit more of how good Ryan Garcia is, because no one has necessarily looked completely dominant against Javier Fortuna in his career. So it's going to be very interesting where Ryan Garcia can take this. But that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see what happens. I'll be rooting for the kid. I think overall that he is an excellent boxer. We'll just have to see what happens, yo. But that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.